those cancer cases that spiked all over Europe and all over Russia were due to Chernobyl because there are people who live in the same neighborhood who didn't get the cancer. And the explanation I just gave you is the real reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the most deadly forms of radioactive transmission of particles are tritium. Tritium is radioactive hydrogen, and of course water is H2O, which is, hydrogen and oxygen. And tritium mixes with ordinary hydrogen in water and in human blood. It bonds to it and forms tritiized water, which is radioactive water. And tritium has a half-life of 12 and a half years. So every 12 and a half years, half of its radioactivity falls off. But in 12 years, tritium will do so much damage to a human body. It is a mutagen, meaning it mutates your DNA.
Well, where does it come from?
It's in nuclear reactors. It is literally because they use water to cool the reactor.
Oh.
It breeds it, and then it also uses tritium. Some nuclear reactors actually inject tritium, and they manufacture tritium. And tritium is used in H-bombs. It's part of the thermal blanket inside of a hydrogen bomb. So breeder reactors, nuclear reactors breed plutonium and they breed tritium for the weapons programs. So that's where they get it from. It's not very abundant in very many natural sources on the planet. So when the Japan reactors exploded, all the hydrogen exploded. That hydrogen, a lot of it was tritiized. So tritium molecules in the air, in the water vapor, in the cloud layer are hard to detect. They're not as easy to detect as things like cesium and iodine.
Okay.
Iodine has a half-life of only 8.5 days, depending on its stability, not necessarily. So half of its radiation falls off every 8.5 days. So it's definitely dangerous for at least 3 or 4 weeks, traveling from Japan to here. But things like plutonium-238, Pu-238 is so deadly, utterly the most deadly stuff there is. Next to tritium is Pu-238. It has a shorter half-life than regular plutonium. Might have half-life, depending on the type, to tens of thousands to even billions of years.
Oh, my God.
Uranium is radioactive for billions of years. So micro dust particles of uranium floating, towards the United States, if it lands on your soils, that soil is going to emit radiation into the water and into the vegetables forever. It'll never go away. And that is what has happened in the European soils after the Chernobyl incident. They're still radioactive to this day. The soil around Chernobyl are still radioactive to this day. The cesium falls off, it's radioactive for a long time also, but it's nothing like the uranium and the plutonium family. 1 grain of plutonium-238 will kill you. One grain.
Wow.
So now here's the big lie. The media says, don't worry, it's the same as when you travel on United Airlines and you're being exposed to cosmic rays in the airplane, because the higher up in altitude you are, the cosmic rays penetrate through the airplane. And then they say it's the same as talking on your cell phone. I'm sorry. You have alpha radiation, which is very short-wave radiation. Its radiative field is only a few inches from the particle. But if the particle itself, the micro piece of dust, is on your skin and it's emitting alpha, then it's transferring itself to your DNA.
Ooh.
You see, because you're looking at dust particles. You're not looking at cosmic rays that are shining from outer space and going through the belly of the airplane. You're looking at actual particles of dust. Then you have beta radiation, which is pure, intense electron energy, and it has a longer wavelength. It radiates a little further than alpha. Then you have neutron radiation. Now, this is where everybody has been lied to about the plant itself.
Okay.
When a nuclear reaction, slow fission of uranium under a computer-controlled environment where you're maintaining a precise temperature with the cool, it is emitting neutrons, and neutrons are neutral, and they bombard the container and the power plant itself. For 35 years, they should have already replaced the whole container. because the container starts to become brittle, which means it can crack very easily. And that's exactly what has happened. Now, some very young PhD physicist at MIT wrote a blog saying, I don't believe those reactors will ever crack open, and here's why, because of 7 inches of steel and there's this much concrete. And I'm just sitting there, you need to have your head examined whoever wrote this, because all my friends in Tokyo didn't leave Tokyo because they read that stupid article.
Right.
And they stayed there, and now they're all being exposed to radiation.
Wow.
Now, the problem is the neutrons make it so brittle that once you have even an earthquake and some, what I would consider moderate overheating at this point, it's already cracked it wide open. And it wouldn't do it if it was brand new. It's doing it now because of the intense neutron radiation. The next level of radiation is X-rays, which go right through solid objects, and gamma rays, which go through virtually everything.
Really?
In fact, I was filming with a Canon XL1 video camera the nuclear power plant outside of Phoenix in the dark. And when I looked at my videography later, you could see this big purple flash that just flashed through the nuclear power plant. Wow. And those are the gamma rays that you get these gamma bursts during the fission of the uranium. And it just flashed like a flashbulb right through the cement and through the metal containers.
Geez.
And the gamma radiation, of course, is the worst because it's the most powerful. And it's a mutagen as well. It mutates everything in its path. So our nuclear power plants, in fact, if you look at some of these gamma detectors out there, if you go to the East Coast, like right now on radiationnetwork.com, you'll see some of the areas where the nuclear power plants are. They have higher radiation levels than places that are in the middle of nowhere. So, because they are radiating all the time, and you cannot stop gamma rays. I'm sorry that the container is not blocking it. The problem is most of our power plants are so old, incredibly old, most of them are brittle at this point. They're very easy to crack open.
Wow.
And many of them have had cracks and radiation leaks that go unreported by the media.
Right.
And that's because and now they're trying to say, well, radiation, a little bit of it isn't going to hurt you at all. But because they don't know how to stop those leaks, and hospitals are another major source of radioactive waste and radiation because they have X-ray machines and CAT scans now, which are worse than X-ray machines.
Yeah.
So there's a number of different places of this unnatural radiation. But the worst thing about a fallout is if this goes on for months in Japan, and sometimes the winds will blow towards, the west coast of Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and sometimes it won't. But when you lose control of a core, you have to wait until those fuel rods have their energy cycle has expired for the radiation levels to drop. So it doesn't matter how much water you throw on there. All you're doing is you're making tritium, you're making all sorts of nuclear particles, and you're making hydrogen, which just explodes. And that's all they're doing.
Oh, geez.
Well, the core is exposed on at least one of them and possibly two or more of them right now. Well, there's been photography taken. So let's go back to our UFOs again, because we've documented numerous cases of UFOs flying near nuclear power plants on the East Coast, nuclear missile silos.
Right.
We know they know that they're aware of this. We know that they can detect radiation. We know that they do have the ability to help us. And I really think that, this is their opportunity to prove to themselves that they care about us and that they can actually demonstrate superior technology. The problem is, every time these things come into our airspace, we freak out and start firing deeply, deeply classified weapons at them.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole program to disinformation to make them the bad guys, and I think that's part of the reason why there's so many negative spins on the alien movies that make them sound
right. We're terrified.
Right, exactly. And of course, if we're kept in terror anyway with terrorist alerts and this and everything, we're basically being herded down the chute to our slaughter, basically.
Yeah.
So
when I did one of my first transmissions to the Palladian ships, the answer I got back was the reason I asked them, why don't you come close like you did in 1968? And they said, because you have classified beam weapons that you've been shooting us down with. We can't get close anymore. We want to help you, but your military is too afraid of us. That was a clear answer that they gave me. And when I sent that broadcast out was my birthday, August 21st last summer. And August 22nd, a UFO was shot down in the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Wow.
And the next day, the mountain was on fire in the forest where it was shot down. And it was over the internet, over YouTube, that everyone saw the UFO in near Bakersfield or Sacramento, I forget where, somewhere in there. And the military had cordoned off the area in the forest, and they had retrieved another, crashed flying saucer. And the Palladians told me that literally I sent my transmission out just before that happened. That's when they told me, we're trying to get close, you guys keep shooting us down. And so they can't help us. That's my point. We want help in Japan right now, but we're sitting on weapons that I know everything about. The Tesla death ray was developed. The Tesla death ray was developed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, according to J. Edgar Hoover FBI files in 1943. Tesla died in 1943. He had a meeting with President Roosevelt the next day, which was the day that he had died. January the 7th, 1943. And Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was developing the weapon, which is exactly where the Roswell craft was taken. Now, Boyd Bushman, Steve Martin senior scientist, tells me on camera that he is friends with a Navy doctor who was treating a young pilot from radiation burns who was given instructions to chase UFOs out of Texas. That were in New Mexico, and he chased them to Roswell, and he personally shot them down.
Wow!
But the beam weapon was so hot it burned the young pilot's skin, and he was telling the doctor all about what he had just done. And he saw the aliens, landed his plane in the desert, and he saw the aliens, and then he was taken to the hospital.
Wow!
Now that weapon at the time was the Tesla death ray, and you cannot even believe what that weapon is today. We are literally in Star Wars. When Reagan announced Star Wars and the ET threat at the UN, it was only made to look like, this is how the military works. They develop something classified, they talk publicly about this Star Wars weapons program, and they publicly make it look like it's a failure. They don't want anybody to know the kind of weapons we have. We have weapons that make nuclear weapons obsolete now.
And I've heard that there's technology so advanced that it's approximately 10,000 years ahead of anything that we have, on the surface of the planet. Mountains that literally unzip and rezip, and light refracting things, and nano elevators that go to other planets. I mean, it's just anything we can imagine. Most likely, it probably is in development or has already been back engineered.
Yeah, that's what the former head of Lockheed Skunk Works virtually said, to a group of people at UCLA at an alumni speech. He said that anything you can imagine we already know how to do and more. We already have the technology to send ET back home, which means we have ET here.
Right. Right. And probably more than one type, too.
Yeah.
I've heard there's 72 types, and some of them are pretty powerful with their telepathic communications.
Yeah, so it's very difficult. The standard model is that we use regular radio transmitters and send messages at the speed of light, and we listen for ET signals, and we can't hear any.
Criminy.
All of that is a cover-up.
Of course.
People like Spielberg and Lucas are completely in the dark as to what we really have, and they're really the highest source in Hollywood for this kind of information that ends up in all these Hollywood movies.
So they're leaked information from the black operations, basically.
Yeah, they're connected to black ops. They will not let, Spielberg started out on the light and the right path with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, my favorite movie of